Welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am your host, Steve Harper, and with me as always is my fabulous co-host, Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm great, and how are you?
I am great. I get to talk to you, so that just makes my day that much brighter. So I'm excited about today's topic. What are we covering today?
So this is a good one. Would you approach life differently if you knew nobody would judge you?
Oh, there's so many ways we could take this one. Yes, I love it. I love it. So yes, I mean, I guess I'll start off. I might. It is funny, we define ourselves, our actions, our attitudes, our management styles, and our approaches based on what we think others will receive and how they'll receive it, which means that a lot of times we are managing to somebody else's judgment as opposed to ours. And so I think it's real interesting as you start to explore this. There's so many ways that you could tackle this and how you conduct yourself in your personal life, how you conduct yourself as a business leader, a manager, or even just an employee. And what I think that, the crux of that conversation is stepping outside of what you think other people expect of you and how they would judge you, to actually do things the way you know in your heart and in your mind they should be and what you should do. So this is pretty timely because yesterday I spoke at a conference and it completely changed the perspective of what the conference organizers had really thought I was going to do. And it was to an audience that is largely not well thought of from a personal or professional development perspective. So this conference opening up the space and opportunity for that to happen was really good. It was really refreshing. But you could tell because these folks haven't gone through a lot of that training, there was a lot of skepticism, especially they hear the word ripple or rippling. They're like, yeah. I'm not sure this is for us. It must be for the executives, the suits of the organization. But what was really interesting was, for when I started to prepare, I have, of course, a standard training that I do and can deliver to just about any audience. But for this one, it just felt in my gut that I needed to do something a little bit differently. And so I actually put together a completely fresh presentation, something that I hadn't done in a while. Of course, this is my first in-person audience since COVID. So I had some pressure there, right? A little bit of pressure, but I was excited. And I decided, you know what? I don't care what they think I should do. I care about what I deliver in the message in the direction that I want to deliver this message because I knew it was a unique audience. And I think to a certain degree, I kind of leaned into I'm going to do it regardless of what the judgment might be. And one of the top executives from this organization came up to me afterwards and she said, that was by far the best presentation I have seen all day. She said, you really spoke to people's hearts. You really understood the audience and you did it in such a respectful way that really gave them confidence to want to lean in and listen to it. And it felt good walking away as a presenter because at the end of the day, I was so glad I just didn't go with my standard fare, which would have been good, no doubt. I would have, killed that, but it wouldn't have been quite as powerful. And so in this instance, I was glad that I went forward and didn't worry about other people's judgment. But as I drove home last night, and then, of course, our conversation today was thinking about how many of those circumstances have I just bended because I was worried about how other people would judge me, so I kind of went with the flow or did what, was expected of me. And how many missed opportunities I would have had. I would not have felt that huge buzz like I did last night after this presentation.
It's really funny that you should say that because when the first time I was asked to do a keynote in Australia for coaching psychology, it was really fascinating because they had never heard of anybody that worked in real time in disaster areas. So at the time, I was doing a lot of work with investigators after plane crashes, war zones, military interventions, you name it. And nobody in their right mind, they said, would do that kind of work in real time. And I did explain to them that I don't go into war zones. I'm actually working remotely with the leaders in that instance. The thing was really fascinating because two of my colleagues, one from Florida and one from Boston, who I respect more than anything, they're just brilliant individuals, are also going to do keynotes at this conference. And they were so excited that I was going to speak on my work because they also think I'm nuts that, I work in those milieux. And the phone started ringing. So first, my colleague from Boston calls me and he says, they've never heard of your style of work and the model that you've created. And when you start talking about it, they're going to go, this woman is wacko and we're out of here. Because, I can't imagine doing that kind of work. Then my colleague from Florida called, and it's pretty much similar kind of conversation. You need to sort of tiptoe into the conversation and say it's not always applicable, however, and have a caveat before you speak. And lastly, another colleague of mine from the States, who's Mensa, I mean, he's brilliant, calls and tells me, I've done a lot of work in Australia, and I'm telling you, they're going to push their buttons and they're going to walk out. They are not going to engage with you. And I'm getting this from 3 people that I highly, highly respect. And I'm saying to myself, how am I going to frame this talk with, my slides are only pictures. There's no PowerPoint or anything. And what was fascinating was I said to them, I called them each back later, and I said, they're bringing me in because my work is refreshing. They've never heard about it. If I second guess everything that comes out of my mouth, I'm not serving them and I'm not honoring what it is that I've created over the years.
Right.
What I did, though, is I walked into the first, because I did 4 separate speaking and workshops in that 5-day period. And I literally was there for 5 days, landed, started speaking. And it was interesting because I said, okay, here's the scoop. This is how I started my talk.
Yeah.
You could look at me and listen to what I have to say and say, this woman is wacko and I'm out of here. Or you could say to yourself, there's something that I could learn from her and I'm going to listen for what that is. And I welcome that conversation after I finished my talk. And they not only stayed there, I went back to Australia 9 times after that to teach because they wanted in. They wanted to know what I did. Yeah. Now, if I judged myself through other people's eyes, I would never have given them what it is they craved.
Yep. That's
the first thing. The second thing is you're not respecting yourself when you are trying to be what everybody else wants you to be. For crying out loud, the world needs you. They have everybody else. Yep. They need you and your unique approach.
That's
and
right.
If I may, before I turn it back over to you, I have a quote that I'd like to share.
Yes.
His name is Stephen Bartlett, and he has some great perspectives. And his was, learn from your past self, compete with your present self, set the bar for your future self, compare you to you.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Well, I mean, that's a timely quote for me because that's exactly what I was doing last night on the drive home, right? Comparing my prior self and my approach that I would have taken with another conference organizer insisting you do it one way, and me being confident and comfortable enough to say, well, I know that's what you told me, but I'm doing something completely different, right? and I have figured out in my own mind, that not that I go against any organizer who might see this and be like, oh, you're trouble, right? Maybe I am. I'm like Donna. I'm going to come up and I'm going to be trouble, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not going to completely discount anything somebody has suggested, but you are judging, and the reason you bring me in or hire me for an event was based on what you've heard or what you've seen previously. And I want to give you something more. I want to give you something new. And, COVID definitely gave me an opportunity to pause and take that break to look and re-examine what it is that I feel the most confident in, what I present on and what I like speaking on, and where I think the world needs to take that message now more than ever, right? And so what it was 16 months ago really doesn't apply any longer. And despite the fact that they were hiring me based on 16-month-old Steve, back in the day, that didn't just feel right for me. And I'm glad that I've gotten to that point where I can say, okay, sure, I'll throw some of that in, but I'm going to do some new custom content for you as well, because I think this audience needs a little bit of a twist, or it needs a little bit of a spark. Just like with you going to Australia and being in that position to say, look, yes, I'm hearing all that professional advice. I'm hearing all that great, and a lot of people are well-intentioned to do it, but also I think some people love to tell you not to do, stay within the lines, color within the lines, because that's what they did. But they secretly wish they could be like you to say, forget that. There are no lines, or, I'm going to color wherever, and I'm going to do it the way that I need to do it, because that's honoring my content, honoring my approach, and honoring myself as the presenter, or the whatever role capacity you're being brought in for, consulting, coaching, etc. So I really respect that. I do think, and this ties to our prior episode that we talked about, how do you regain your confidence back? That's a big step forward to do that, right? Is to be comfortable to go against the grain, and do it differently, because at the end of the day, nobody can do it like you do it. And so that's you've got to remember that when you're, in a situation where you're presenting, or you're talking about new ideas with your team, or you're leading a new initiative at work, being able to be in that position to say, hey, look, I can't allow what I think people's judgments might be. I have to be able to be bigger than that and carry it forward.
And we're not saying don't consult. Don't
Sure.
find out from people, what their thinking is, because we don't know everything there is to know about everything. That's not the thing.
I mean, you do.
Talking about, no, I certainly don't. The reason I think that a lot of what we do is successful is because it is unscripted. And
Yes.
people have told me that. I am so present. I deal with what unfolds, not what happened a week ago. Because you could learn things, yes. You could become incredibly proficient at something. However, your unique life experiences, your unique unchanging nature and traits is what makes you you. The minute you try to park that and be somebody else and be what others are judging you for is where you get into trouble.
That's right. Absolutely.
What I look forward to sometime in the future, like post-COVID or post dealing with COVID, whatever terms you want to put to it, is us actually having some kind of event where we do an unscripted conversation with everybody in the room.
Oh, that'd be great.
That would be, I think, one of the most powerful things, not an agenda with being spoken at, which I'm hired to do on a regular basis. So try to have one-on-one time at the end, at least.
Yeah.
But to do that one-on-one unscripted conversations in real time with people in the room that just throw us their experiences and we percolate on them together, I think would be one of the most powerful experiences that any of us, could possibly have.
I think it would be fantastic. Of course, I'm just falling all the way back to my judgment, thing that was like, okay, if we did that, I mean, what would people think? How would they judge it? Because there's this rock star, Donna Carlin, and then, this other guy. So see, even I don't always have it figured out, but I'm getting there. I'm figuring it out.
We had that conversation in past shows, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you threatened me with a hocky puck, so I don't.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of them on my.
We don't need to go there again. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really, it's all of our conversations are really geared for our audience, whether you're tuning in for the podcast or you're getting this on YouTube or Facebook. We really want this to be useful information and really get you to think, look inward at some of these conversations that we're having, some of these questions that we're posing. Because I think when you start to do that, you really start to figure out some things that are working for you or maybe not working for you, ways that you can improve your personal and your professional life. And that's what I love about these topics, because they're things we struggle with. We don't have all the answers, just like you said. We don't know everything. But at the end of the day, we are pretty passionate about the things that we do know and that we want to talk about. And so we are so grateful to our audience that tunes in and continues to, be an active participant in these conversations, and most importantly, carrying them outside of this show so that you're having those conversations with your team or with your family, or with your friends, and seeing the results of those conversations coming back to us. Guess what? This is how it happened. This is what they thought or interpreted on the topic, and we just love that. So Donna, tell folks how they can get in touch with us, maybe to suggest other show topics that they would like, other questions that they might like us to pose and have a conversation over.
Our Facebook group is perfect place for that because we post the videos, and it's a great place for ongoing conversations.
Yep.
Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. Same with our YouTube channel. They could comment on there and give us some ideas, or through our websites.
Yep.
Yours is ripplecentral.com. Mine is donnacarlin.com. Great way to send us an individual note, especially if you don't want to do this publicly and you have something that's dear to your heart. We will address it. It won't be tomorrow, but we will get to it. We do not discount any of the questions that people, put to us, because we want to have
absolutely.
That discussion.
Yeah, no, we would love to have them, and we will definitely get back to you. We promise. So, well, Donna, thank you very much for another great, amazing conversation. You were just you just make my day. So I'm so grateful to have these opportunities. So thank you, and I will see you and talk to you soon.
Same here. Have a good one.